Hi. In the last episode, we had spoken about the active and the passive voice when we stopped. So just to recapitulate what we have said in the last episode, we talked about the parts of speech. What are parts of speech? Parts of speech is the classification of all the words that are in a language into different categories. So in that respect, we have got the nouns, the pronouns, then the adjectives, we have got verbs, adverbs, we have got prepositions, conjunctions and interjections. Out of this, we said for our purpose, we will talk about the verbs. We will not be talking about the verbs in terms of the tenses, because that we can deal with them at a different time. Last time we were talking about the types of verbs. So we were talking about the transitive verbs and the intransitive verbs. And in that context, I give you a sentence. Biju kicked the ball. So when we analyze this sentence, we find that this is the subject, kicked is the verb, and the ball is what we call the object. We call this kick as a transitive verb because the word transitive comes from the Latin word transire, meaning to go across. That means the action of the subject goes across from the subject through the verb to the object. I repeat, we call it as transitive verb because the action of the verb of the subject goes through the verb to the object. So that is what we call the transitive verb. Then we also have got an intransitive verb, that is where the action of the verb does not go across to an object, but it remains with the subject. Okay, so that is what we call an intransitive verb. So we have got a transitive verb and we have got an intransitive verb. The transitive verbs always take an object. To find out the object, you ask the verb what. If you get an answer, the answer that you get will be the object of the sentence, and that verb will be a transitive verb. I repeat, if you want to find out which is the object, you ask the verb what. What did the subject do? In this case, what did Biju do? Biju kicked. What did Biju kick? He kicked a ball. So you get an answer. And in an intransitive verb, we do not get an object. So I give you the example of the baby sleeps peacefully. The baby sleeps peacefully. The subject is the baby, the verb is sleeps, and peacefully is not the object. Okay, how does the baby sleep? The baby sleeps peacefully. So peacefully is not the object. Now you ask the question, what does the baby sleep? What does the baby sleep? Not how does the baby sleep or why does the baby sleep, but what does the baby sleep? You don't get an answer. When you don't get an answer, it means that the action of the verb remains with the subject. So this sleeps is not a transitive verb, but it is what we call an intransitive verb. Okay. So these are the two types of verbs that we were talking about yesterday, the other day, and now we are coming into the next part of it. That is, how do you, this is also what we call a active voice. This is what we call an active voice. Okay, why is it an active voice? Because the subject acts. Okay, the subject acts and acts upon something, and therefore the sentence is called an active voice. We can have a passive voice where the subject does not act but the subject suffers the result of the action like. Okay, and therefore we can turn this one into a passive voice. By the way, I must remind you that only transitive verbs can be turned into active and passive. Okay, only transitive verbs will be active voices, and only those transitive verbs can be turned from active to passive. Okay, so please remember that. So here, this can be turned into the passive voice. You've got to look at certain things. Number one is the object of the active becomes the subject of the passive. So the ball, okay, and is kicked by Biju. So the object of the active voice becomes the subject of the passive voice, and the subject becomes what we call the agent. Agent meaning the person or the thing by whom the action has been done. Is that okay? So that is what you have got to remember. And the third thing that you have got to remember is the tense of the verb changes. Here it is past tense, simple past tense. This becomes a present perfect tense. Okay, so simple past tense becomes a present perfect tense. So that the tenses will be changing. So when you have to remember this, when we are changing an active voice into the passive voice, you find out which is the subject, find out which is the verb, and find out which is the object. It does not matter whether the sentence is a short sentence or it is a long sentence. But whatever it is, you find out, identify the subject, identify the verb, and identify the object. Okay? And put the object into the subject and the subject into the agent, and the rest of it will flow as it is. As we go on, when we do more examples, you will be able to understand this better. But the basic principle is this: when you want to turn an active voice into a passive voice, you identify the subject, find out the verb, and then identify the object. In the passive, the object becomes the subject, the tense changes a little bit, and the subject becomes the agent. Okay? So let's take some examples of that. Let us take the example of a case where we get a sentence like Cookie's Corner sells cakes. Cookie's Corner sells cakes. Okay. Now what is Cookie's Corner? Cookie's Corner is a bakery. Cookie's Corner is a proper noun, and therefore I use cookies with a capital C and corner with a capital C, showing that this is a bakery. Cookie's Corner sells cakes. Very simple sentence, very small sentence. Let's analyze this. This is Cookie's Corner is what we call the subject, isn't it? And sells is the verb, and cakes is the object of that. Okay. Now, when we are turning this into the passive, the object will become the subject, and the subject will become the agent. Okay. So this will be cakes are sold by Cookie's Corner. Cakes are sold by Cookie's Corner. So the object becomes the subject and the subject becomes the agent. Now, how do you know that it is the agent? Because we have got by here. So the agent will have the by. So this is the agent. Now look at the tense of the verb. Sells is supposed to be simple present tense. Okay, and then this will come into past tense. So cells will become are sold. So it will be cakes are sold by Cookies Corner. So that is the present tense. When we have got a present tense, this will be turned into a passive like this. The object becomes the subject and the subject becomes the agent. Let's take another. Suppose we are having a present continuous tense. So that will be Cookies Corner is selling cookies. Corner is selling cakes. Okay, Cookies Corner is selling cakes. How will we turn that into the passive? This will be cakes are being sold by Cookies Corner. Okay, so cakes are being sold. Is selling will become are being sold. Are being sold. Is that okay? So that is supposed to be the present continuous tense. Now when do we use the present tense and when do we use the present continuous tense and all? That we will take it at a different occasion when we are talking about the tenses as such. Okay. Let's take another example, the past tense, simple past tense. Cookies Corner sold Cookies Corner sold cakes. Cookies Corner sold cakes. Simple past tense. What will that become? Cakes are sold by Cookies Corner. Okay. Cakes are sold by Cookies Corner. And you can say, or also you can say cookies, cakes were sold by Cookies Corner. So in this way, we will be able to change the active voice into passive voice, and then conversely, when you are changing the passive voice into the active voice, we will have to adopt the reverse procedure. That is, the agent will become the subject and the subject will become the object. Okay, so that is how we do that in the active and passive voice. Now, next point is, I will give you all these in the form of an exercise. It will come to you on your YOLO app. Please download that and see if you can get a printout. And at the end of this, you will also get an exercise where you got a lot of sentences. And also you will get the answers to that exercise in the same folder, and therefore please download them and get a printout of that and see if you can do the exercise without knowing the answers, and then check the answers with the what you have written with the answers that I have given. Okay, so that is, then we go on to the next part of it. You know, there are certain examples where the agent is understood. In that case, where the agent is understood, we do not need to put the agent. In other words, we can leave out the agent. I agree. There are certain cases where the agent is understood because of the peculiar circumstances and all. And in those cases, we may leave out the agent. For example, you say the police caught the thief. Okay, which is the subject, the police. Caught is the verb, and the thief is supposed to be the object. So when you turn this one into the passive voice, it will be the thief was caught by the police. Correct. Isn't it? We have got the subject, we have got the agent, so this is supposed to be the passive voice. But we may also write that the thief was caught, full stop. Why? Because it is understood that it is the duty of the police to catch the thief, nobody else, isn't it? Generally speaking, right? And so what happens is, you can also say that the thief was caught. It is understood that the thief was caught by the police. So since the agent is understood, we may leave out the agent. Okay. So that, for example, suppose you say the lesson on the evolution of man. Suppose you say the teacher taught the lesson on the evolution of man. Analyze the sentence. Which is the subject? The subject is the teacher. Which is the verb? The verb is supposed to be taught. Okay. What did the teacher teach? She taught the lesson on the evolution of man. That is the long, phrase there. It is a long phrase there. But then that is supposed to be the object. That is what we call a noun phrase. And the noun phrase stands in the place of the object there. So that is the whole thing is the object. So where this is supposed to be active. And when we are turning this into the passive, what do we do? What we do is we take the whole thing here and turn that into the subject. So, the lesson on the evolution of man was taught by the teacher. Okay, the lesson on the evolution of man was taught by the teacher. Correct. Now, can we leave out the agent there and write the lesson on the evolution of man was taught? We can. Why? Because generally speaking, a lesson is taught by a teacher in the class. We are not talking about the moral lesson that we are talking about. We are not talking about that. We are talking about a lesson that is in the content that the teacher is supposed to teach. Isn't it? So we can say the lesson on the evolution of man was taught by the teacher. That by the teacher can be left out and the agent can be left understood. Okay. That is one example. Then another, for example, the judge condemned the prisoner to life imprisonment. Suppose you say that the judge condemned the prisoner, suppose you say to death. The judge condemned the prisoner. Examine the sentence. Which is the subject? The judge. Which is the verb? Condemned it. And the prisoner is supposed to be the object of this particular sentence. Okay? And therefore, when we are turning this into the passive voice, what we have got to do is we have got to get the object as the subject and the subject as the agent. Okay? So this literally will come to the prisoner was condemned to death by the judge. Okay, correct, perfectly correct. Now, the prisoner is the subject, was condemned is the verb, and by the judge is supposed to be the agent. But in this case, what we can do is, we can leave out the agent because it is understood that only judges have got the power to condemn a person to death. And therefore you can write the sentence as, the prisoner was condemned to death, full stop. We need not write by the judge. The by the judge is understood. And so there are certain instances where the agent is understood and therefore the agent may be left out. Okay. And if there is a passive voice in which the agent is left out, and we have got to convert that into the active voice, we will have to supply the agent there. Okay, so that is one thing that you will have to remember. Then another instance is where we have got questions. We have got questions, and there are some other instances where we have got commands. Questions, for example, do they ask any question? When you are going for an interview or something, somebody asks you at the interview, do they ask any question? Okay, do they ask any question? Suppose this is a sentence. Okay, now they is the subject. Ask is the verb, this is the subject, ask is the verb, any question is the object here. So how do you put that? The order of the words in an active voice question will be slightly different because we have to start with the question word. Okay, so here it will be are questions asked, are questions asked, by them is understood. By them is understood, and therefore we leave them out. And therefore, do they ask questions? This will be an active voice. When you turn that into the passive voice, the sentence will be are questions asked by them. Okay, by them may be understood, and therefore the question can be, the sentence can be are questions asked. Okay, that is a, suppose you say, why are you changing those tires? Why are you changing those tires? Question mark. Okay, now how do you change that into the you is the subject, changing is the verb, those tires is supposed to be the object. This is the subject. So the order of the words will change because of the question, and therefore this will become why are those tires being changed? Okay, so it will become why are those tires being changed? Question mark. By you is understood. Why are you changing those tires? In the passive it will become why are those tires being changed? By you is understood. You can leave that out. So the sentence will be why are those tires being changed? Okay. Take another example. Suppose you say, how do you draw this diagram? How do you draw this? Suppose you say that in the sentence. How will you put that into the passive? How do you draw this diagram? Question mark. Okay. Now, how will you turn this one? Once again, identify the subject and identify the object, and then turn the object into the subject and the subject into the agent. So this will become how is this diagram drawn? How is this diagram drawn? How is this diagram? So, how do you draw this diagram? It will become, how is this diagram drawn? By you is understood. Okay. So, there are questions. Now, when you are turning this active voice questions into the passive voice, the order of the words will change because of the question. Okay. So, that is supposed to be something that is important for you to remember. And so, the other thing is, there may be commands, okay, and commands again, just like the places where examples where I told you that there are cases where the agent is understood. like the police caught the thief was caught by the police, it is understood that the police have got the authority to catch thieves. Okay. In the similar cases, also in commands, for example, there are certain cases where it is supposed to be, the agent is supposed to be understood. Okay. For example, you say that the general commanded his men to fall in line. Okay. Commanded his men to fall in line. Okay. Let's analyze the sentence. What is the subject? Subject is general. Okay. Verb is supposed to be commanded. That is the verb. And then what is the object? The object is his men. His men. This is the object. What did they command them to do? He commanded them to fall in line. That is material here. Okay. So you identify the subject, you identify the verb and the object, and turn the object into the subject and the subject into the agent. Okay. So his men were ordered to fall in line by the general. Okay. Now, generally speaking, when a certain number of men are ordered to fall in line, particularly in a military context, it is understood that it is done by the general. Okay. And therefore, we can take this as understood and the agent can be left out, and therefore your sentence can be his men were ordered to fall in line, or you can say the men were ordered to fall in line. By the general is understood. Okay. Like for example, suppose you say somebody has come into the room and then he has left the door open and somebody says shut the door. Here there is no agent, no subject that is mentioned there. It is just simply shut the door. It is supposed to be an order. Okay. And so you can say, let the door be shut by you or by somebody like that. Okay. It can be you, it can be him or whatever. But then the shut the door is a command. That can be translated into the passive voice by using it like this. Let the door be shut. Okay. Then suppose you say, bring in the band. Suppose there is another, the king. Suppose you say you imagine a place where the king is ordering his men to bring in the band. And so the king says, bring in the band. The king is ordering his men to bring in the band. Okay. This can be translated into the passive with let the band be brought in. Okay. By you is understood, and therefore let the band be brought in. Either by you or by somebody, that is understood. We don't need to mention that. So when there is a command, bring in the band, then it will be let the band be brought in. Okay. Like for example, suppose you say switch on the light. Means let the light be switched on. Okay. Right. So these are the ways in which a command is translated into the passive voice, and there are cases where the questions are asked, the questions are also translated. You will be getting a number of sentences, exactly 48 sentences, where you will have to turn them into the passive voice. I'll just give you some example. Suppose you say, a thief stole my dog and brought it back only when I offered 100 rupees. Okay, there are two sentences here. You note that and see how you will have to turn both those sentences into. So, my dog sorry, a thief stole my dog. A thief stole my dog and he brought it back only when I offered him 100 rupees. Okay, now we have to turn this sentence into the passive. Is it one sentence or are there 2 or 3 sentences here? There are 3 sentences. Number 1 is a thief stole my dog. That is one. Then he brought it back. Okay. A thief stole my dog and he brought it back. That is the second one. The third one is I offered him 100 rupees. So you will have to make sure that all the 3 parts are turned into passive and joined with a conjunction so that the whole thing becomes one sentence. Okay. So this will be my dog was stolen. Should I say by a thief? Not necessary, because it is understood that thieves only steal, isn't it? So my dog was stolen and it was brought back. Okay? Only when the thief was offered rupees 100. Okay? Now look at it very carefully. A thief stole my dog. My dog was stolen. By a thief is understood, so I leave it. And he brought it back. And it was brought back. By whom? By him, by the thief, understood. And only when he was offered. Now suppose you say when he was offered here, then it can mean my dog or it can mean the thief. So in order to make it very clear that we are not offering 100 rupees to the dog, but we are offering 100 rupees to the thief, we are mentioning the thief here. Okay? And when the thief was offered 100 rupees, so it was brought back only when the thief was offered 100 rupees. Okay, so the sentence will be, my dog was stolen and it was brought back only when the thief was offered 100 rupees. Okay, so that is supposed to be the type of sentences that you will be getting. There may be 1 or 2 sentences or 3 sentences that are clubbed together because of the conjunction. And therefore, you will have to turn all of them into the passive voice. You will have to be careful. You will be given these examples that I have spoken about. You will be given the exercise, 48 sentences, and you will also be given the answers to these 48 sentences, and these will come to you by the YOLO app. Please download this and see if you can get a printout, do the exercises, and check it out against the answers that I have given. If you have any doubts about it, either you can call me up or when you come to school we can clarify that, but please do it. Have a nice day.